You're 4 years old and you don't understand what's happening. You don't know the word disgrace and you don't know what your father did wrong. You just know that one day things were normal and now they aren't. And nobody's explaining to you the way you need it explained exactly what's going on. Your father's gone, exiled to Bajo, for breaking the law. And because of what he did, you're here, standing at the gates of the Forbidden City. And they're the tallest thing that you've ever seen in your life. And you don't know right now, because you have absolutely no way of knowing, that you're never going to leave. Welcome back to The Rose's Past. Today, we're stepping into the Ming Dynasty for part 1 of a 3-part series on the legend of Wan Jinar, the woman who changed ancient China's timeline. So let's get into it. Her father was a man named Wan Guai, a county official. He was pretty minor, not the kind of man that anyone really remembers. And during the Swanda period, he broke the law and the punishment came down on his entire family. He was exiled and his 4-year-old daughter was handed over to the Forbidden City as a palace maid. She was placed into the service of Sun Taiho, Empress Dowager's son. And there she stayed for the next 15 years, until she was 19 years old. She wasn't being educated and she wasn't being prepared for anything. She was literally at the bottom of the totem pole. Everything was controlled from what she wore to where she walked and who she could speak to. Every single day of her childhood and her teenage years were spent inside of that palace. By the time she was 19, she understood the inner palace in a way that almost nobody else could. Not because she was taught it, but because she had been surviving it since she was old enough to walk. Right now, in 1449, everything is starting to change for her, and it's not because of anything that she does. It's because of a particular battle. The current Zhengtong emperor, the reigning emperor at the time, rode out to meet a Mongol invasion, and he walked straight into catastrophe. His palace called this the Battle of Tumu, and he was surrounded and destroyed. He was taken and he was captured alive by the Mongols. Obviously, at this stage, the court was panicking. With the emperor gone, they needed to hold the dynasty together. So his brother was placed on the throne as a temporary measure. And to preserve the rightful line of succession, the captured emperor's 2-year-old son, a boy named Zhu Jinshen, was placed as the crown prince. He was only 2 years old, and he needed a household, which means that he needed staff. And the records don't give us a formal transfer order. What they give us instead is just the result. Lady Wan was moved from the Empress Dowager's household to the Eastern Palace to serve the young prince. At this time, she was 19 years old and he was 2. She was the one who would wake him every morning. She dressed him, she brought him his meals, she played with him, she consoled him. And she was the single constant in that boy's daily life from the very beginning. And that relationship was about to be tested in a way that neither of them could have anticipated. The emperor's brother was sitting on the throne, and he was supposed to be a temporary caretaker, but he wasn't in a hurry to give the throne back. When the original emperor was eventually released by the Mongols and returned to the palace, his brother didn't step aside. He kept the throne, and the returned emperor was placed under house arrest instead. He was literally a prisoner inside of his own palace. And the crown prince? Well, his uncle decided that he was a liability, a rival, and a future problem. So he stripped the boy of his crown prince title and instead he gave it to his own son. And just like that, the boy had nothing. No title, no status, and no future that anyone in the court was willing to place their bets on. His household was cut, and all of his staff that were left completely abandoned him. Everyone made the rational choice of leaving, because this child with no future, standing with him, is a risk with no reward. and everyone left except Lady Wan. Now, think about what that decision meant for her personally. She was a 19-year-old maid with no family influence, no political protection. Staying with a dethroned, abandoned child when the entire court had walked away wasn't professionally pointless. It was dangerous. If the uncle decided that this boy needed to quietly disappear, being the person beside him was not where you wanted to be. But she stayed anyway, and she didn't just stay, she made herself the wall between everything that could hurt him. She slept in the same bed as him so he wouldn't be alone at night. She tasted every meal before he ate it because the kitchens were controlled by people loyal to his uncle. And poison wasn't just a paranoid fear, it was a standard tool of palace politics. She personally handled all of his clothing, his bedding, and anything and everything that touched his body. Because treated fabric was also a real threat, and she wasn't going to let anyone outside put their hands near him. The record notes that during these years, the boy would go on to develop severe night terrors. Anxiety so deep that it gave him a stutter that would carry on for the rest of his life. He was just a small child living under constant threat in a palace that had already decided long ago that he was disposable. And the only person who showed up for him every single day was her. For 5 years. This went on for 5 years. And what was being built between them in those 5 years wasn't a professional relationship. It wasn't fondness. It was something that doesn't really have a clean name because the specific bond that we're talking about happens when someone who isn't strong enough feels protected by someone who is strong enough. And by the time that all of this was over, they were inseparable. In 1457, the uncle fell gravely ill, and his own son, the boy that he instilled as crown prince, had already gone on to die. He had no heir of his own, and that opened up a window, and a group of officials moved fast for this opportunity, in what history calls the Tumu, the coup of the seizing of the gates. They stormed the palace at dawn and restored the original emperor to his throne, which meant that the crown prince got his title back. Fast forward 7 years, and his father would die in 1464. The 17-year-old Zhu Junshen became the Chenghua emperor. He was 17 years old, and Lady Wan was 34. And almost immediately there was a problem here, because the relationship between the crown prince and his caretaker had not always stayed between the relationship of a child and his maid. Somewhere in those years, it had become something else. The emperor, his empress, and the empress dowager were all united on this fact that it could not continue. This relationship was not okay. And the influence that she held over him was completely too powerful. So something had to be done. And their solution? Their solution was a wife. Her name was Lady Wu. She was young, wealthy, from a respected household. Everything that the court wanted. And the choice of her really wasn't subtle. She was being instilled specifically to block Lady Wan from having any path to the highest possible rank. You can think of her as a human barrier between Wan and the throne. The young emperor was forced to marry her. And within 1 month of that marriage, it was clear what kind of person Empress Wu was. She looked at Lady Wan, this older woman, a maid, moving through the imperial chambers like they had already belonged to her, that she couldn't stand it anymore, and she ordered Lady Wan to be publicly flogged. We don't know for certain whether or not Empress Wu understood the full depth of what existed between Lady Wan and the Emperor before she made the decision to beat Lady Wan in public. Maybe she just underestimated it, or maybe she just thought that it wasn't true. But this would go on to be the last decision that she would make as Empress, because Lady Wan went straight to the Emperor, weeping, bleeding, and with her clothes still undone. And the Chenghua Emperor didn't investigate. He didn't need to. The line had been well and truly crossed. And the very next day, he stripped her of her title, and after less than a month of being married, she was banished to the Western Palace, where she would live out the rest of her life in complete obscurity. Now, the effect that had on the court was immense. His own family had deployed their most powerful tool, an Empress, chosen specifically to contain this relationship, and he had destroyed her in 24 hours to defend it. After this, Lady Wan was officially brought into the imperial harem. As Wenfei, her name made the formal list at last. The women of the 6 palaces, the record tells us, rarely got the chance to see or serve the emperor after this. Access to him ran through Lady Wan, or it didn't happen at all. And the veritable records give us this image. Whenever the emperor traveled, Wan would ride ahead of him in military-style dress. Not behind him and not beside him, but in front of him. A visible statement to the entire court of exactly how much power she held. And then, in 1466, for one brief moment, it looked like the story might resolve into something that was almost clean. Lady Wan became pregnant, and she gave birth to the emperor's first son. The Chenghua emperor was so excited that he ordered offerings to the mountains and the rivers across the entire country. He celebrated publicly and extravagantly. This was the heir. This was the future. And this was the moment that should have made her position completely untouchable. She was even elevated to the status of Guifei, Noble Consort. That's just one rank below the Empress in this time period. A formal acknowledgement, not just of the child, but of everything that she was to him. But tragedy would strike, and the boy wouldn't survive his first year. The record says that the prince died before the year had passed. And from that point on, Lady Wan, already older, and her body having been through what it had been through, never conceived again. She had held her son, and she had watched him die, and inside of her heart she knew that there would never be another. But the court didn't mourn with her. The court moved on, because somewhere in the palace, another consort named Lady Bai was also giving birth that same year. And her son was alive. And that son was everything that Lady Wan's son could no longer be. She was 39 years old. She had given the emperor his first son and buried him in the same breath. And now she had to watch the rest of the palace provide children that she could not. That grief is exactly where the woman the history books remembers begins. Because what comes next isn't random at all. It grows directly from that loss, out of that room and what she understood while going through that trauma. In part 2, we go into the part of the story that the official record barely knew how to write down. The network she built inside of the palace, the women who suffered because of it, the pregnancy that was supposed to be ended, and the one man who decided to lie to the most powerful woman in the palace to hide a child instead. And that boy would spend the first 5 years of his life in the forgotten room of the Forbidden City, kept alive on rice water, waiting for his father to finally find out that he existed. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because the story that comes next is one that almost ended an imperial lineage. As always, the more you know.